Alright, today I'm going to show you the 2018 Hyundai Elantra Sport and do a little bit of a comparison to the 2017 Honda Civic EXT Coupe, which I had first. I had that for about a week, bought it from Carvana. Carvana did not disclose that it had a major accident and needed about $7,000 in repairs, so I sent it back and got the Elantra through someone else. Here it is, the Elantra. Before I get it started up, I want to show you something with the trunk, just because it's hard to do once you're close up where it started. Car's locked. Key fob's obviously in my hand. Let's just watch the trunk. Four beeps and it automatically opens up by itself. Something that the lower model of the Elantra does not have. Come to the door, you have the button right here to get yourself in and out. Coming inside, if you've looked at the Honda Civic, one of the first things you'll notice in the Elantra is that there's a few more upgrades, such as leather seats. Honda refuses to put leather in their Civics for some unknown reason, even though it costs a little bit more than the Elantra. Jump in the back here. Alright, here we go. Here's what we have in the dash. We have this has the premium package. So with that, you have dual climate control, which you can see right here. And let's zoom in a little bit closer here. You see right there where it says Infinity? That's also an indication of the premium package. It has the higher quality audio. The Civic EXT comes default with the 450 watt sound system. The Hyundai Elantra Sport is optional. You'll also see on the driver and passenger side doors, it says Infinity as well. Alright, let's get in and start her up. You'll notice before I've even started the car, it's telling me that the sunroof is open and the driver's door is open. All the warning lights come on. There's a system check. Hear that nice little purr that's going on there. Hyundai spent a lot of time on that. Now that we're started up, I'll show you this. You have your infotainment center right here. And this is the default view every time you start up. As you drive around, it moves a little green cursor on the navigation around with you. And here's your menu. It's a touch screen. Few options. There we go. Get up in here a little bit. So you take a look at this. You obviously have your tripometer, your range, your average miles per gallon, all that good stuff. Compass. This right here, I'm on the radio. If I were to change it to something else, As far as I know... Oh, you can. There you go. There's an option right here on the steering wheel. Change the mode. That sun's just in a bad place. There we go. That's a lot better. So we press the mode. You can see that it's changing now. It's on AM, satellite, auxiliary. You have voice commands, which they're pretty slow. I don't use them. I think most people don't, but they're there. Obviously cruise control, which works like a normal cruise control. Nothing too exciting there. Your service indicator, how many miles, how many days. Your tire pressure indicator as well. Now, here's the first comparison to the Honda Civic, all models of the Honda Civic. Honda went super cheap on the TPMS system and decided just not to include a TPMS system at all for tires. So instead, they used the ABS brake system to measure the tire pressure. Well, that's great. It tells you if your tire is low, to the point that you can also see that your tire is low. But it often needs to be calibrated 4 or 5 times while driving in order to turn off the tire pressure monitoring light. And it's often that the tire pressure monitoring light will come on when you're driving, even though there is no issue with the tires. That's because the ABS brake system is not designed to measure the pressure of the tires. But Honda's trying to do it anyways, and it sucks really bad. This brings me to the next thing. See that right here? Not many cars have this. The Hyundai Elantra has the manual pull handbrake. The Civic, on the other hand, does not, and has the electronic parking brake, which I did not have any issues with in the weeks that I had it, but a lot of the reviews that I found on the Honda Civic, all editions of it, a lot of people are reporting the electronic parking brake locking up and not coming undone. When that happens, you have to take both rear tires off, and you have to manually release the caliper. Most people do not have the tool at home to do that, which means you have to have the car towed to the dealership. Really good parking brake in the fact that the car is not going to move, but you also have that chance that you're not going to be able to drive the car, which is why you have it in the first place. So something that I really, really miss about the Civic that I just don't have in the Elantra is the power. Now, if you know anything about either car, you might be questioning why I'm saying that. On paper, the Hyundai Elantra puts out 200 horsepower, 200 torque approximately, and the Civic is about 170 horsepower, 170 torque. So, should the Elantra be faster? In theory, yes. The Elantra has a 1.6 liter engine. The Civic has a 1.5 liter engine. So the Elantra is bigger, a larger engine, technically has more power, but the Civic is faster. How does this make sense? Well, take a look at dynos that people have done on both vehicles. The Civic will outperform the Elantra every single time. And most dynos are showing the Civic EXT rated at about 200 horsepower and 200 torque, not the 170 that Honda is reporting. On the flip side, you come to the Elantra, most dynos are reporting 170 on horsepower, about 160 on torque, which is 30 less horsepower and 40 less torque than what Hyundai is reporting. Now, to make matters worse, the Elantra, when I bought the car and I drove for the first 3 hours, flat ground, good conditions on the highway, nice and sunny, 28 miles per gallon on the highway. Horrible gas mileage. Civic throws you back in your seat every single time. You still get 41 miles per gallon on the highway. What's going on here? Honda, in their infinite wisdom, all of their years building cars, when they went to the EXT and then again to the SI, they used the exact same engine that the lower model Civics had. So they gave the car something that already had good, solid gas mileage, and they added a turbocharger to it. So you basically get to keep your gas mileage and you get more power. You come to the Elantra, Hyundai took the 2-liter engine that is standard in most of the Elantras and downsized it to a 1.6 liter. So the 2.0 has enough power, enough torque that it doesn't have to fight to accelerate, and in return, you get that nice gas mileage. And it's very reasonable to expect 40 miles per gallon on the highway with the lower model Elantras. With this Sport, with a smaller engine, it has to work harder to get up to that speed. And the turbo does not work at all times. Something else that I've noticed between both cars. See this right here? See if I can get it to stay right there. 2,000 RPM right there. Engine's not working too hard, right? Well, confirming this with the dynos that people have performed on both vehicles, about 2,000 RPM, the Honda Civic EXT is releasing about 110, 120 torque. On the flip side, this Hyundai Elantra Sport, right here at the same 2,000 RPM, is putting out about 25 to 30 torque. So almost an entire 100 less than the Civic. By the time you get right here to 3,000 RPM, Civic is putting out its rated power and torque at about 170 horsepower and torque. 3,000 RPM on the Elantra, you still have not broken 100 horsepower or torque. Furthermore, most of the power doesn't start until right here at 4,000 RPM on the Elantra. So 2,000 to 4,000 is where you want to do most of your accelerating. That's where you want to have your power. If you're going to save gas mileage, of course, in the Elantra, if you want to have that power, you have to get up to 4,000 RPM, which you almost never get to in a normal driving situation because you will shift to save gas. This car, you don't have that choice if you want the power. And to make matters worse, when you get to about 5,000, 5,500, somewhere in there, it just falls flat on its face and you run out of power. You have no more, turbo stops performing, and you're just kind of dead in the water until you shift. Super annoying, a lot of things that need to be fixed. Hyundai definitely is not allowing this car to perform to its max, because obviously they were able to report the horsepower and torque at 200, and then they down-tuned the car to do that. Now, there's a company called Torque Motorsports that releases, in my opinion, one of the better tunes for this vehicle. They are the only company that I have found that offers a tune that promises any sort of gas mileage increase along with power. And they are estimating that you should be seeing about a 15% fuel increase with up to a 15% power efficiency increase with what they call a stage 0 tune. And essentially what that is unleashing the car and locking it to run how they feel the car should have come from the factory. So better performance, a little bit more throw you back in your seat, because honestly right now the Elantra has none of that. Kind of feel like you're leaning forward as you're trying to accelerate hard. Not a fun feeling. I'm excited to get it, and I'll try to do a review once I do, kind of show the difference a little bit. But $700, I haven't jumped on it quite yet. Looking at Torque Motorsports Tune, it helps a little bit when you get up to the 2000 RPM range. You're not pushing 25 anymore, you're pushing more like 40, 50 torque. So you have a little bit more power there, and that's honestly almost quite double. So you should notice an improvement. By the time you get up to 25,000, 3,000 RPM, you're doing significantly better with the Tune than you do with stock, but you're still not comparing to the Civic at all whatsoever. They do have the ability to set launch control. Not exactly sure what that is, but they have different RPM ranges starting at 2,500 and going up to like 5,000 or something. Most likely I'm going to choose the 2,500 because I want my power on the low end. That's where I want my engine putting out all of its power using the least amount of gas possible. Very doable. It's proven in the Honda Civic, and they did a very good job with it. Now, I told you the Civic I had to return because it had repairs that needed to be done, and on a car that's 1 year old and 10,000 miles, I was not going to do that, especially when it had been in an accident, and that accident could be reported anytime while owning the car, making the car not worth any value. So I sent it back to Carvana. Great experience with Carvana. They returned the car, no questions asked. They scheduled a time, came and picked it up, and that's that. Canceled the loan. Everything's good to go. Why did I not replace the Civic with another Civic? And here's why. The infotainment center is the worst I've ever seen in the Civic. First, all of these nice features that I've shown you right here in this little display, not there in the Civic. You have your miles per gallon in the Civic. You have your tripometer. I don't remember if you have your distance till empty, but that's it. You don't have anything else. You don't have any other settings that you can change or fluctuate or anything like that. Now, on the Civic, let's say it's 110 degrees out or 0 degrees out. You want to get in, turn on the car, start warming it up before you drive it, and you want to turn on the air, turn on the heat, do whatever it is you need to do. Alright, so you start at your home screen. This is the Elantra, but I'm going to mimic the Civic. You go into your menus. Wait a little bit longer than that for it to load. Finally get there. Scroll down a few times until you find the climate control. Climate control screen takes a moment or two to come up. By the time you go through all of these steps, it takes about an entire minute after you've turned on the car before you can touch the climate control system. Period. It's very cumbersome, very annoying. You take a look here. Buttons. Off, fan, defrost, AC, ventilation. It's all right here. Very quick. Matter of seconds, you're done. You're back out of the heat, back out of the cold, waiting for your car to do whatever it needs to do. Furthermore, I want to show you this. Something that Honda thinks that you no longer need. The auxiliary cord port. The Honda Civic has a little bit better stereo system. It is pushing a 450 watt system, whereas the Elantra with the premium package is pushing 400 watts, so 50 watts less than the Elantra. However, Honda limits your ability to input quality audio. They are not using Bluetooth 5.0, which most of our phones are now using today, which would allow a high quality data transfer of the audio. Instead, they're using something lower, like 4.2, that's a lot cheaper, and transmits about 12 to 16 kilobits per second, which gives you generic radio, non-digital radio quality. Very poor quality for a very decent sound system. Now, if you have an iPhone, you can use the USB port on the Civic to play audio from your phone. On Android Auto, I could only get the Civic to play USB as long as it was coming from the Google Play Music Store, Google Music app. I couldn't get it to play anything off of my phone, couldn't get it to play any Pandora or anything else coming from my phone. Only the Google Music library itself, which would require a subscription to Google's music service. Not going to happen. Now, my phone has a 32-bit DAC, so I can definitely notice the difference here. In this car, I listen to Bluetooth. It sounds like it's just missing something. Plug in my headphone jack, turn up the volume, check the DAC, make sure it's on. Night and day difference, almost like you're live in concert listening to it right there. Huge difference. Major reason of why I went with the Elantra. Civic was cheaper on insurance than the Elantra, just by a little bit, not a huge difference. The Elantra also has 4 doors, whereas the Civic has 2. I'll take a brief moment here. You know this from all the pictures, but you obviously have your 6-speed transmission right here with reverse. In the front left, you have this right here to put it in reverse, which brings me to the camera. You have a pretty decent camera in here. You have some guidelines, shows you where you're going, all that good stuff. And you don't really see a fisheye lens issue going on with it. Well, if you compare that to the Civic, it has an extreme fisheye lens. Even though you can adjust it, you can't remove the fisheye. And when you are backing up, the way the fisheye lens is, it makes it look like you are about to hit a car, when in reality, you are about 3-4 feet away from the car. So, in the Civic, the only benefit of having that camera is to simply see if there's an object behind you. It's not beneficial in any other sense to actually back up and maneuver the car. I found myself constantly having to look over my shoulder and check the mirrors, and I felt like the camera actually added an extra step. Now, something that the Civic has that the Elantra does not have is that when you turn on the right turn signal, and there's even a button, you don't have to turn on the turn signal, but there's a mirror. This mirror right here, there's a camera on the outside that pops up right here for your blind spot, and it shows you what's on the side of the car. It's kind of trippy. It takes a little bit of time to get used to, so you can kind of place what's outside of the car along with you, because it's not normal to see that side of the car while driving. Which brings me to this car. Since this has a premium package, this also includes the blind spot detection, which, when you look at the mirror, there you go. You see that it's there. You also have it on the passenger side mirror. Let's get out and show you a quick under the hood. Yeah. Car beeps whenever you try to leave without the key being in there. Something I don't like too much about this, it sounds cheap. It sounds like it's not running as efficiently as it should be. It is. That's the normal sound for this Elantra. You obviously can hear the nice rumble of the exhaust from the inside. See if we can get a little bit closer here. Hopefully you can hear that a little bit better than I can. A nice quiet rumble. Gets a little bit louder when you give it some gas. Overall, it's a nice car, and I'm really hoping that once I get the tune kit, it's going to make a huge difference in how it drives and give me better gas mileage, because I really honestly miss that 40 miles a gallon. Driving around town in the Civic, flooring it out of the intersections, having fun, throwing me back in my seat, I would easily get 27 miles per gallon. This car, if I try and keep my speed down on the freeway, I push 28 on the freeway. So in the city, I generally average 21, 22 miles per gallon, both of which are significantly less than the Civic, and you don't have as much fun. And something I learned, because I have another Elantra, another 2018 SE Elantra, that does not have fog lights, like this supposedly does right here. They are not fog lights in this vehicle. These are daytime running lights. That is what Hyundai calls them, and they are not designed by Hyundai to be fog lights, but rather to give a nice appearance, as well as to, you know, be your daytime running lights. If your car does not have those, then your regular headlights should act as your daytime running lights. So why Hyundai did that, I'm not sure. I think we always have a lot of questions on car manufacturers, what they were thinking or how drunk they were when they tried to come up with these decisions. Questions that we will never have answers to, and they will just keep doing what they're doing. Well, I don't know if you can see that scratch right there. Pretty sure that's a scratch, and I don't remember it being there. So that's fun. Now, this car to the Civic, very quick, simple comparison. The Civic is the car you want if all you care about is drivability. Don't care what's in it, don't really care about the other functions. You want a car that's fun to drive and good gas mileage. You can play Bluetooth through your phone, and that's all you care about, go with the Civic. Even with the manual transmission on the Civic EXT, I still have the electronic parking brake, kind of disappointing, but the car is much funner to drive. The Elantra is lacking a lot of the fun part of the driving, but it makes daily driving, especially with a family, easier because it has your 4 doors. It comfortably seats 4 people, sometimes 5. The Civic can comfortably seat 2 up front, 2 smaller people in the back, and maybe a tiny person in the middle, but I wouldn't count on that. So I'd almost consider the Civic to be a 4-seater. If you want all of the features, all the latest creature comforts and everything that a car has to offer, you're going to go with the Elantra. Both cars have heated seats. The Civic is a nice cloth that holds on to all of your stains and spills for the life of the car, whereas your Elantra is going to have your leather seats. A quick wipe off if something were to spill, not a big deal. Of course, leather seats are a little bit colder in the winter, but they heat up nice and quick with 3 different temperature settings on the Elantra seats. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask, and I can maybe do another video if I get enough questions and show some features on here. I will point out one more. If I can get the trunk open. Can't use the remote while the car's on. There we go. See if we can get in here. Alright, so can't get that sun to go away. There we go. So this car came with this netting. See, it's a pretty decent trunk. Goes in there a little bit. You can actually see the subwoofer right there. Which does not have a pretty, it's not a strong subwoofer. It doesn't make a huge difference. You can see it goes back quite a ways. There we go. Let's see if I can do this. I want to say in the Civic, that sunlight just does not like me. About right here is the end of your trunk. So in the Civic, you have almost half of the trunk space. You would probably be able to fit one full-size suitcase in the Civic, maybe two. Otherwise, you're going to be needing to look at the back seat. This Elantra still has your normal Elantra trunk space, something that you would expect in any of the Elantras. Once again, go ahead and ask me questions if you have any. And this is my quick review on the Elantra versus the Civic EXT.